So on this lab with the penguins, the main thing that I would say is, so everything's about information gathering first so that you know what it is that you've got on the machine. Because when I get a hard drive in, I have no idea what it is. So I'll image it, I repair it, I fix it, then I start looking for the stuff I need to figure out what it is. Most of the time I've got to make sure I know what the file system is. Now, I showed you in this tool, now this is Directory Opus. We didn't really technically have a lab on Directory Opus, but I highlighted the DD image, and so if it had been a JPEG or a picture, it would show me, I can turn on with this little button right here, a view. And I'm just doing this for simplicity. You don't have to do it this way. We could have done it in FTK Imager, which you used more often from that standpoint. So as long as I can see it in hex, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the end of 512 bytes, and I'm going to look for the 55AA to see if I have a 55AA at the end of 512 bytes. So this thing did show me in hex my image, and I do have 55AA. And then what will be a little harder to see right away, I showed you where the 07 is, but we didn't do a lot of other operating systems, but I showed you this. I showed you this right here that had the original 99 choices that you would be able to choose for a partition type, right? So let's come over here and let's just look and glance. So again, even if I opened it in FTK, I do exactly the same thing. I scroll to the bottom of the first 512 bytes. Then at the bottom of 512 bytes, I can tell, hey, 55AA. Then I work backwards from there. So then your columns that will include, now in this case, it needs to be bigger so that I can see the alignment. So I've got 55AA, and then you'll see when you look at the record that there will be, I lost it, 1, 2, 3, 55AA. Oh, that's it, 4. Dang it. With my alignment. AA, and then when you go over here and you look to see what those segments are, again, they're not aligned. I really need to do it like in FTK so you can see, but I'd be able to tell what those records were. And so we have a 83, and then the next one is actually 05. So I've got the rows doubled up. It's twice as many because it's supposed to be 16 across. So 83 would have been where the 07 was. And then the next one, there will be a second partition, and the second partition type is 05. So what is 83? If you wanted to know, you go look at the chart, then you go to 83, and 83 will tell you that it's Linux. So in 83, now, what is 05? Is an extended partition. Most Linux distributions have 3 types of partition, so what they'll have is they'll do the first one as your boot partition, they'll do the second one as an extended partition. Inside the extended partition, they will put the other 2 partitions that they use. And another one will be 83, because it'll be your home directory. And the other one, which is EXT, the other one will be a swap partition. So if I followed the 05, the next partition structure would be 83 and 82 for a Linux swap. So you don't have to do anything with it. You just have to know that it's there. So once you know you have Linux, you know you have these things. So from that standpoint, that's all I would have been looking for. So even if I'd done exactly the same thing, I'd done it here in FTK, because we used FTK, and all you got to do is open an image file, open image, blah, blah. And then I would have had exactly the same thing. Here it is, blah, blah, blah. Here it is. And then I would have been able to go backwards, 8305. Everybody good so far? Right? Now, if I didn't do any of this, and let's just say I said, I don't know anything. The most versatile program on this, and almost altogether, unless you buy UFS Explorer or Reclaim Me, nothing does more file systems in one program than RStudio. So RStudio, I launch RStudio. That would be my most likely starting point. Open image file, and then I'd go to that file and open that file or that hard drive. And then right away, it tells you the answer. It tells you, here's the first partition and here's EXT. It does not say NTFS right there. All right, so.
That's what I saw in the first place. I'm like, yeah, no.
Right. So now there's two partitions. The second partition is the extended partition, and that includes the swap file and some other stuff. So I wasn't trying to be that hard to make you follow that path to go get that data. So I made it so that you could stay inside of the partition, but you can process the whole hard drive itself. You could have done, and that's what most people did do, right click, scan, and carve, right? You'll find the answer, but your file will be corrupt because the pointer for the 12th block of indirection will always screw up the picture. Only because RStudio doesn't know how to handle it. Xways would do it correctly. There are some other tools that will do it correctly. RStudio just includes the pointer. So it leaves the pointer there so it'll be corrupt. So after you found what you wanted and you knew it was there, then you'd have to come back to here, go to the partition, right click and process the drive files. Just like we did on a RAID array. Because once you've rebuilt it, it might have been a RAID array. Who knows what it would have been, right? Now, here's where the difference in speed comes in. You know it's a JPEG. I told you the two pictures are JPEGs. Right? I didn't say one's an Adobe and one's a, because you would have had to do multiple file types at that point in time. So I told you the two pictures are JPEGs, so you only needed to export JPEGs. That way I could limit how much time that you were spending on doing this process. But there's still a lot of JPEGs on this computer. So once it was done, you could export the whole thing. But then you'd have to look at all the files. But I told you you're only looking for two pictures. And in my world, money is time. So I also showed you once upon a time, if you just come down to the extensions. Now there's a couple of ways, again, to do this. If you go down through the process, you'll find that there is a folder, because where do people keep their, if I'm grandma, where's my pictures? What folder? Right, they'd be in my user folder, and then I would have, so which is in this case called the home folder. Then I just made a folder to make it easy, data, and then in the data folder, you would now find a pictures folder. Bam. So here's the pictures folder in the process. The first picture, and I'm going to go back and process another way, but the very first picture that Grandma would have had on the computer, if you had opened it and clicked on it, has the North Pole in the picture. So now the last picture is not here in this. I would have made it the last, but the last in all the JPEGs, not the last in the same folder. Because if you came here, you'll notice none of these are the ones. And those guys are not the penguins. I'm just going to let you know. So what would have to happen now, you'd find the first one and you'd know what her folder was. The second one, you would have to extract all the JPEGs. So you come to extensions. You turn off all this other stuff. I don't need any of this other stuff. I get rid of all this. Dang it. Uncheck all the stuff. Come to graphics. Go to JPEGs. And then I would right click and recover all the JPEGs. And then say go ahead, yes, I want them all. And then I'd have to wait. These are extensions of the file system, so I'll just leave the extensions of the file system. And then I'd extract all the pictures, and then I have to go to the folder and look at the thumbnails, which is most of the time what we have to do. You cannot sit there and click on every single file for an hour inside of data recovery software. Once I'm done with this, now I come over here, go to where I recovered it, which hopefully I can remember what directory I just used. I use a standard one when I'm doing it all the time, but I did it here and then JPEG. So I have a folder of all the JPEGs. These are the real ones with the real names. After I find the file that I want, I can go back to the operating system and search for the file. So in this case, because now you have a whole list of JPEGs, if it was sorted by name, then pretty close to the bottom, as you're going backwards and you look at every single picture, it's not exactly the last picture, but it's pretty close. that's the actual picture that you would have been looking for. But what would have happened is you would have been in this view, you would have gone to thumbnails and images, and you would have been up here at the top, and you would have had to look and scroll through every single picture to find whatever it is that you were looking for. And eventually, and I made it so that it was somewhat invisible, it's harder to see, that those are it's like, because people fly by this and they don't even know these are penguins, because they're so small in the picture, unless they look at the picture, they didn't know these are penguins. And I told you, find the one that does not have a title screen on it. So when you finally get to that one, the file's name is welcome, and it does not have text on it at all. This is actually how I live my life every day. How quick can I get here? How many pictures can I give somebody? Look. Now, I don't have to look for always like a specific file. I look for dead grandma pictures because that's how I get paid. If you have pictures of dead grandma or a family member that died that was old and decrepit in your pictures, you will get paid. I promise. Everybody wants the missing pictures, or children, baby pictures, things that happened when they were born. So that's what I'm looking for. I extract those. I don't give them every picture initially. I'll just take 10 or 20 good pictures, and I give them a contact sheet of all the pictures and say, this is what I found. I can recover all this stuff. Do you want it? Pay me. And they pay me. Once you give them the pictures, they will never pay you. So you get them to give you the money first, and even if they say, oh, well, I need to know my QuickBooks file is working, I will do what I can to test QuickBooks myself and tell you, oh, well, your balance is negative $247. I don't know how you're going to pay me, but that's what it is. So, you know, whatever it takes, I will try to do so that I don't have to give it to them. Occasionally, I have to trust somebody and I have to send them a database file they can run on their own system or whatever, you know, usually corporate stuff. Corporate stuff is more likely to pay you than individuals are. Individuals are like, I got it. I'm never paying you again. And they go. All right? So that's kind of how I have to do every day of my life. This is what Chase does all day long. This is find the picture. Find what Grandma said she wanted. And that's it. So that's the majority of my work. Now, you guys go eat pizza, and we're going to start taking stuff off of the desk and start putting hardware away. So we're going to start packing our stuff. Your stuff is, whatever was in the black bag is yours to take with you. The black box that has the hard drive in it, that is yours to take with you. The static mat that you built your hard drive on is yours to take with you. And books. What's not yours is the platter tool set, the magnets, the bench, the deep spar, the motherboard, the monitors, the laptops. It would definitely not be the first time I've heard, hey, thanks for the laptop, or whatever. So, Mickey? So people have always asked. But that's the rest of the stuff we're going to try to pack up and get done, because the next piece of this is a little bit more than an hour long. So if you take your break, eat pizza, we'll pack and do stuff, then we'll start pretty close to promptly 1:10, 1:15, whenever we're done, we can get out of the way with your tables. And then we'll do the last part of the presentation, and we'll roughly be done between 2:15, 2:30. Okay, how are you guys doing on copying the, you're the last one, right? So everybody else has got. So after I'm done with this, I'll put all that today's on the physical memory stick, and then you'll have less to copy. Or I can put all of today's up on a Dropbox and send you guys a link. So if you just want today's, because it'll only be like 4 gigs or 5 gigs, I'll put it up on a Dropbox, and then you guys can have, I'll just email you the link. But it'll be a few days before I get home and do it, okay? Because it's going to be a few days before I drive back home and do it. All right, everybody good? All right, everybody happy with this lab? Yes. And I say practice this kind of stuff all the time. Try to figure out. Now, forensics people do it all day long. That's what they do. But data recovery guys, they are always looking for what the client asked for. Okay? All right. And